Hello there, people, and welcome to yet another edition of the Doom PY playthrough. This time around, we're going to be talking about a more important historical level of Doom. Yes, there are some important historical levels we have to check out, and one of them had a CRC error, so we could never check it out before. Yeah! And it's part of this weird step series of levels that basically has just like building up, and each one gets like more and more advanced with stuff in it. But then we have this one, which is totally separate. It has nothing to do with the step series, and yet it's in this pack for some reason. It's called Mine1. If you remember ROOMY, you'll remember how that it basically was like an expansion onto MARKROOM. And then you'll remember that there was another level like that, which was called Flash. A very early level in this entire playthrough. And guess what? This level was the original version of Flash. This is what that level basically based it off of, that geometry off of. And yeah, that's not the only level that'll do it, apparently. There is a lot of levels that based it off this particular level out there. So yeah, this level is not really that substantial, really that big of a thing at all. But it is very important because of all the levels that basically copied it. So yeah, hopefully Vortex said like Flash is in one of his level packs. I'm not exactly sure how true that is. He might have been getting it confused with one of the other ones that looked exactly the same. Because yeah, like I just said, it basically is that it could be any one of these. And you have to kind of look at the details of it and figure out which one we're exactly talking about. So we're going to play the original one and see how it compares to Flash. That's going to be the big deal of today. Alright, so let's see here. Here is a real level. Lots of tricks, some traps. It has no monsters or things. Add your own. So yeah, that's the big difference between Mine1 and Flash. Mine1 has nothing in it in terms of enemies. It's totally barren. While Flash is the one that added all the monsters. It has a large open arena, which is ideal for 1-on-3 battles. Still a work of progress, but enjoy! So yeah, let's check it out and see how it looks. It'll probably have like an air of familiarity, just because one, I've played in the past, and I recognize the other levels in this pack. And B, it's going to be a lot similar to Flash. Wasn't this like the opposite island of where we spawned in Flash? I swear the textures look different than they did in Flash. I think it was like gray. And here it's like more darkish brown. We also have no secrets, no items, anything. For a real level, this is a real level! You don't have anything in it. Man, and I thought this was a level that had stuff in it. Oh, thank you, memory. You completely failed me. But yep, here we are with stuff that looks familiar. I remember those ledges with enemies in the other version. I really don't remember this version, because there's nothing really here. It probably didn't hold any significance to me when I played it, because why would it? But now that we played Flash, it might hold some significance, because this is basically just like Flash, except more barren. Like, totally barren. As the basic geometry we saw in Flash, everything's here. Doesn't have the doorway leading back here. It probably won't have the big areas that we saw then. You know, the big areas with the M's, you know, that were like around the pit, aka the area that was pretty big in Flash, you know, the areas where you could turn off the lights and the soul sphere and all that. Yeah, this is just like a pointless 4-room area. Then we have this way, which leads around. This is the boring version of Flash, apparently. We can head down this long corridor. This is the opposite side of where we basically started, and we can see also the ledge down there. That little courtyard. Also have our way out there, which, if you notice, looks a lot more barren than the version we saw in the final game. I think this is the one. I know there was two like this. This one was like copied in the Flash version. I think this is the one that had like the ledge of the soul sphere, and the other one's the one you could use to shut off the lights. So there's no way to shut off the lights in this one. which is kind of a good thing, is I didn't like the light shut off feature, but it was more complex than what we see here. I mean, this is like nothing. There's just nothing to this. It's very bland, very boring. Drop down here into this giant open area. Okay, instead of like, I think these elevators were exactly the same in the final version. You had a bunch of like imps and other enemies to fight up here. I remember this being like a very deadly part in Flash. Here, there's just nothing here. So yeah, Vorknuts, you probably played Flash because Mine1 had nothing to it. But at least you get to see what the barren version of the game looked like before it became the one that you know and love. It was pretty boring. Flash was pretty boring, but at least that had enemies. Here's where it was like you kind of went back, you fought the shotgun guys, all that. Nothing here, of course. Sadly. You can run around all these corridors, and this leads back out to where we were before somewhat. Okay, so once again, I'm going to no-clip around because I'm not really sure if there's really anything else. And there's really no point otherwise. You know, there's like nothing to do here. Seriously, this is, for such a complete level, this feels like it belongs to all the test levels just because of how barren it is. This is a real level that was never completed and had to be completed by others. So yeah, I kind of thought that Flash was just going to basically take this level and do kind of like what ROOMY did to MARKROOM, which is basically add one little tiny area and call it a day. And it does. This has most of the geometry that you see in Flash, albeit some things missing like down here and stuff. And the whole nukage area is not in this version. But another significant thing is the total lack of enemies, weaponry, secrets, or anything else. So there was some very big things that changed between these versions. A lot more that I felt in that. So yeah, it's very, very easy to tell which version we kind of were playing, which I wasn't exactly sure if that was going to be the case. As I said, this version is like totally forgettable, probably because I probably played it and was like, this is just a boring empty level with nothing in it. And so it kind of slipped my mind because to get to Flash takes a lot of levels to get there. And when the pain in the butt things is when you're not exactly recording these, and showing them off and having it so you can access it in an easy playlist, you kind of forget what level is what level, and everything starts slipping between. So you end up forgetting exactly what levels looked like, what they were, and so yeah. It's a lot easier when you're recording, luckily, to kind of look back and see what, things were and have a good memory of this stuff. Honestly, that's one reason it's nice to do all this. Just like when I was rambling about Daggerfall and saying how nice it is because now I can actually tell what books I'm reading, which is always a problem with RPGs. I always forget what books I end up reading, which ones I haven't. And now it's for like a nice, easy recording way of figuring out what I have done. It just allows for good memory, and that's something I really lack normally, so it really helps. Anyway, with all that in mind, this has been the adventure. But at least now we have seen the entirety of this pack, including a level that had a lot of importance, even if it's totally bare bones, because of basically being the influence for Flash somehow. I guess the person for Flash saw this and basically decided to expand upon it. And in comparison, it definitely had a lot more going for it in Flash, so I do have to say that they did a good job of expanding and adding a lot to it, to make it feel like the actual level instead of this bare bones thing that we see here. Anyway, with all that in mind, thank you very much all for watching, and I shall see you all next time.